Crystal Deal With It focuses on bridging the gap between where you're at now and where you'd like to be. We'll explore wisdom and techniques from a wide variety of domains and industries and apply them to your unique challenges. I love developing frameworks, processes, and storytelling metaphors that enable personal and business growth. Through actionable next steps, we'll build momentum and confidence. My goal is to help you clear roadblocks, do more with what you have, and realize the potential of yourself and your team. So throw your challenges my way, and Chris will deal with it. Episode 3. Stuff makes it tough to know what's enough. Today on Episode 3 of Chris will deal with it, let's take a look at stuff. So today's question. My current challenge is trying to purge the excess of stuff I've accumulated over the years. Part of the issue is the time to do it. Breaking it down into smaller jobs hasn't really worked for me. Do I sell it? Do I donate it? Do I throw it in the trash? Do I leave it as a legacy for my children to sort through? All kidding aside, getting started is easy. Seeing it through to the finish line is the hard part. My answer is going to cover 3 broad areas. 1, the nature of stuff. 2, the concept of environmental mastery. And 3, the power of letting go. Part 1 of my answer, the nature of stuff. There's certainly no shortage of advice on the topic of getting rid of stuff. The easy advice here is go read Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And she popularized this idea of, does this bring me joy? You've probably seen her Netflix special. But it is a wonderful example that mindset is critical to the success of any endeavor. For the asker of our question, seeing themselves past the finish line is the real challenge here. There's plenty of practical advice for getting rid of all the various kinds of stuff. I think too often we focus on the physical here. There could also be mental stuff, emotional stuff, whatever. I'm going to avoid the trap of long lists of places and techniques for getting rid of stuff. There's plenty of resources for that. That being said, I tend to get skeptical when someone gets the level of fame and attention that Kondo has. But in this case, I read the original book and I absolutely loved it. Some of her techniques really helped me minimize. I also especially enjoyed how she ties her mindset to animism. I definitely recommend her work because it answers a lot of critical underlying questions that lead to the stuff in the first place and your relationship to it. So in short, purging stuff gives you the freedom to reimagine the spaces you inhabit. And from there, you can redefine. But let's go a layer deeper here and reframe the definition of stuff. Stuff is the things we surround ourselves with. They speak to who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be. So I'm relating it here to the idea that you can think of yourself as always being 3 people. There's past you, there's current you, and there's future you. Past you, it's worthy of honoring their effort, their history, their visions of the future. Learn their lessons, understand their limitations, and accept their failings. Then there's current you, and you can only truly live as this person. This person has a unique opportunity to be your best self, fully realized. This person is not the same as past or future versions, yet is the bridge between them. And then there's future you, right? You want to provide this future you with knowledge, skills, and an environment so that they can go seize opportunities. Know that they're going to turn out differently from what past you and current you expect. So let's bring this back to stuff. Stuff isn't just a quantity, it's also a quality. How are your things organized and stored? Do they have an expiration date? If you were on MTV Cribs, and I might be dating myself with this reference, what would viewers think of your space? How would you feel about their portrayal? Are you trying out for hoarders here? Again, I'm cutting some jokes here, but stuff isn't about physical objects. Not just about it. It's also your longings, your ideas, your projects, your fears. And this mental clutter is just as powerful. It carries the potential of visions. It has notebooks sacrificed in their honor. It is the stuff of daydreams and nightmares. But they can too stymie us. Right? Many never become products that cross the finish line. Bringing it back to what our question, that was the main heart of that question. There's this great book, Imagined, by Jonah Lehrer. It came out a few years ago. And he said that our creativity is impacted by our environment. Your mind is situated in a context and culture. So for me, it makes me ask myself, what is the environment I'm surrounding myself with? How is it aiding or challenging my ability to produce great work? It can be so hard to let go of thoughts and ideas. They're not like objects. Usually an object, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. For example, is anyone out there in the market for a trunk full of 1990s hockey cards? I'm asking for a friend. Now, I could go offload all those boxes in less than an hour if I needed to. I could donate them, whatever. But honestly, if I did that, I wouldn't miss them too much. They're worth more than that. But It's so much harder to get rid of an old idea, a story outline, a board game prototype, outdated blog posts, because they were the product of creative effort, your past self made manifest. And that's part of who you are. It's not an external object. So it's worth considering here if purging old ideas or mindsets that no longer serve you could be the trick to achieving the proper mindset to deal with the physical stuff. So let's move on to section 2 of my answer here, and that's the concept of environmental mastery. And this is a concept from psychology. You could define environmental mastery as the ability to shape environments to suit one's needs and desires, to feel in control of one's life, and to not feel overwhelmed by the demands and responsibilities of everyday life. Now, let's be clear here. I'm not advocating for some Spartan environment or modern art IKEA showrooms. So this episode was developed at a desk surrounded by a poster of a cat in a trucker hat playing a banjo saying, "Welcome to the cat skills," because I love wordplay, a few hundred of my most treasured books, a miniature Stanley Cup and St. Louis Little Brat, and dozens of other tchotchkes from my life and family that bring me joy, they inspire me, or spark memories. The other 3/4 of the room, it's an anxiety-inducing amount of kids' crap. So I say this to illustrate that you're unlikely to ever have a perfect physical environment or some kind of laser-focused mentality for any one project. You got to be a little bit creative here. But the key is the mentality you have around the stuff. You should consider the destination first. Don't let yourself get bogged down in the early stages of pain and effort it's going to require to get there. So with credit to the legendary Maxwell Maltz, there's a technique for this. I want to go into doing a quick theater of the mind exercise, popularize this idea. So if you can, I want you to get comfortable. This movie's about to start. Silence your phone. Shush all those loud kids in front. Close your eyes. Envision yourself in your personal space in its ideal configuration. Is it clear of clutter and stress? It's clean. It's inviting. How is the furniture arranged? What stuff remains to aid and inspire your journey? What does it feel like to inhabit it? You should be excited to work in this space. So when you do these exercises, keep in mind you're the director. Play with the scene. Try things out. Move the furniture. Try new angles, new viewpoints. Change the color of the walls, the decor. Explore entirely different rooms or buildings. It's your movie. So when you come back to the reality of your current environment and your current amounts of stuff, it should become easier to carve out a path between the two environments. That's what we talk about when we need environmental mastery. So on this topic of letting go, I'm going to come back to my personal anecdote before. I talked about the office, which I share with my wife, and 3/4 of it is her stuff, and a lot of it belongs to our kids now. I've got 2 young kids. I work from home primarily. I'm based out of a home office. When she went back to work, we don't have a lot of spaces in the house that are conducive to sitting down and doing focused work. If she's in a job where she's on the phone all day. So I did have to find another space. And I've spent time bouncing around the house, but there's only so many Zoom meetings you can take with your coffee maker in the background, or you're taking on the front porch. You're subject to weather sometimes. Lighting is always a challenge. There's a lot of background noise. And so when you're trying to do creative work, if you're not in the space you've created, sometimes you go into a coffee shop to be around other people. There can be certain places where you do your best work or certain types of work. Sometimes context switching is important, but you do want to try to give yourself a space. And for me, part of the last year or so, and knowing we had a second kid on the way, when my wife went back, we were going to have this problem. I got in front of it for a while. I said, okay, well, where else? And I have a detached garage. And it gets some pretty decent light in the afternoons, but it needs some work. But it also had an old outhouse in the middle of inside the detached garage. And so I hired somebody to help take out that outhouse. It was almost 100 years old. It was gross. Took care of it. We cleared out a lot of the old shelving. We've been in the house for years, but we just it needed a lot of work. Opened up this space and created a simple workbench. I go back to saying, I think Spartan, right? I'm not asking for IKEA, but I didn't want a lot of distraction. I went in, I made sure it had a Wi-Fi extender in there. It had good lighting, so I had meetings. I sit in front of a window. I just see my backyard. I can see if people are coming or going in the house, so I still feel attached to what's going on, but I have a space separate from the house. There's enough of a noise break in there. I can open the doors and get a fresh breeze if I'm just doing my own work. And I found it to be for me, I closed my eyes and envisioned what that space could be and started with that. And I realized that simplicity was the key. So you may want to look for creative ways because of restrictions that you might have in your life. There's always going to be a compromise. There's things about it that I don't like. There's a small hole in the roof, and when it rains, it's loud as hell in there, and I can't record a podcast, for example. I have a train nearby that all of a sudden, right? And that can disrupt your work. So there's never going to be a perfect situation to do this, but you make the best with what you have. I'm fortunate to have something like a detached garage. You may not have that. So you may want to go look on Google Maps. Maybe there's a co-working space. Maybe there's a public space that has free Wi-Fi, and maybe it's an inspiring location. Maybe it's a park with a gazebo so you're protected from the elements. And that's where you go with a notepad to plan your week. So you don't have to do all your work in one place, I guess is what I'm really trying to say here. Think about the different aspects of your life and what you need to get done, and create an environment specific for that task. And again, this is part of my answer of the power of letting go. I think it's not just letting go of the notion that everything's going to be perfect, but also letting go of the current spaces that you inhabit. So again, I just want to give some personal anecdotes there to add on to my thoughts there. So I'd like to close out today's episode with some other quotes from Stoic philosophy. I don't know the source of this one. Is it not madness and wildest lunacy to desire so much when you can hold so little? And our second quote is from Seneca. It is the mind that makes us rich, that goes with us into exile and in the wildest wilderness, having found there all that the body needs for its sustenance. It itself overflows in the enjoyment of its own goods. If you feel that Chris dealt with it, I'd appreciate your support of the show by sharing it with someone who might benefit. Ratings on your favorite podcast player are also helpful in growing the audience. Visit chriskreuter.com for free downloadable PDFs with notes and resources from today's episode, sign up for the CDWI mailing list, or to send in your problems or requests for future shows. That's CHRISKREUTER.com, or use the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Chris will Deal With It.